If I could access the USDA site properly, maybe I would find the page that would actually tell me for sure, but I've not seen any chatter of it.
Hi, once again, everybody. Welcome back to the Comstock channel. I'm Marlon Bowling with you, and thank you for joining us on this very important edition of the Comstock channel's update as we look at Friday's market information. Boy, this is one that you don't want to miss. And be sure to like this video, subscribe to it by clicking that bell icon down below. And I would encourage you to share this with others as well, because man, oh man, did we have a lot of stuff to cover as a result of Friday's markets and USDA data that came out. With me, I've got Relph of Comstock Investments, and we're going to take a look at the stuff that took place on Friday. Much anticipated. We had the June quarterly stocks report. We also had that much anticipated planted acreage report that came out, Eric. And right out of the gate, USDA kind of fell on its face and couldn't even get the report put out in time.
Right.
It seemed like the data just kind of came dribbling out, and that frustrated a lot of people right there, because it seems like some people were trading on it and some didn't even have the info yet. What a mess.
Yeah, and that's exactly what was going on then. I'm so glad we get to start with this so we can put it behind us quickly. The 11 o'clock rolls around and you're expecting data to drop and refreshing web page, nothing, and the market's moving to the point where you can tell somebody's seeing it, but we couldn't see it. About 5 after, I was seeing updates on Twitter where several people were saying USDA site's still down. Beans are higher, corn's lower, things of that nature going around on ag Twitter. And I continued probably checking until about a quarter after 11 and never did get the information direct from the USDA. I did end up getting it through our clearing firm, which is RJ O'Brien, and did get the information that way. And then I started seeing some other people posting it on Twitter. So I had to get it from third party sources. And that's always real reassuring when the government entity can't put out the information in a timely and meaningful way. So anyway, we got the information. The market didn't like what it saw for the most part in corn. Beans were a little bit more neutrally received, and justifiably so. Wheat was negative as well. So just kind of a gut-wrenching hour, because it drug out for a long time, and we weren't able to see the USDA official page until closer to noon, and didn't like what we saw at that point.
I'll admit, even at the noon hour, I went to the main NAS webpage, and it has links on there to go directly to the grain stocks report or the planted acreage report. And I clicked on one of them, and it brought up a big banner on there, and I'm looking at it right now. It did not pull up the report. It was one of those 404 error banners.
Error page, yeah.
And on the bottom, it proudly says, under a picture of a pretty barn, it says USDA's National Ag Statistics Service provides timely, accurate, and useful statistics in service to U.S. agriculture. They've kind of blown that out of the water the last couple of years. From what I recall, we've had so many delayed reports in error. We've had them labeled wrong. Sometimes they will credit export sales to the wrong commodity, for crying out loud. I don't know who is running the ship over there, but man, they have got a lot of questions to answer to. I mean, there was probably a lot of money that changed hands in that first 10 minutes that some people didn't have the opportunity to even get in the game.
Millions and millions and millions of dollars traded hands before most of us were able to see the data. And it's just unacceptable. Anytime they have multiple reports, so even on the monthlies, we get a crop production and WASDE report. On the quarterly stocks, we get a quarterly stocks and planted acreage report. We get a quarterly stocks and acreage intentions report. And they're all supposed to come out at 11 o'clock Central Time. Obviously, we have viewers and listeners from all over the country, so we have to specify 11 o'clock Central Time. And you'll sometimes get one at 11 and the other at 11:02, or things of that nature. And that's been going on for quite some time, but this was just absolutely ridiculous today. And it makes me wonder if we shouldn't have some kind of an after hours or before trading hour drop, where it comes out during the morning biscuit break, or it comes out after the 1:15 settlements or 1:20 post session. This just, I don't know. This will raise a lot of eyebrows, and there's going to be a lot of unhappy people about this one.
Well, and I've always contended that it was way better off when they used to come out at 7:30 Central Time before the markets opened up. Okay, now we have overnight trade until 7:45, I guess, on the Globex. But you could still you could issue it at 8 o'clock. You'd still have a half hour before the trade opens at 8:30.
That's
Why
right.
not do that? Why not make it a level playing field for everybody? I don't understand. Well, I have my opinions, but it doesn't
Yeah.
make sense to put it out right during the trading session when only certain outlets have immediate access to it and can act on it with algo trade.
Right. And if it's not going to, okay, so we're going to move it to 8 o'clock. If we have technical issues and we can't get it out at 8 o'clock, stop the transmission. Don't put it out. And we'll
Yeah,
wait.
and
We'll put
delay
it
the
out.
start of the trade too.
And we'll put it out after the close this afternoon. Technical issues happen. Everybody understands that, but don't make it beneficial to some and detrimental to others along the way.
Well, and then what it just blows my mind, Eric, that over the years I've had to report on this for several decades now. But then even after all this, I mean, so we're dealing, and we'll get to it in a second. But now we're looking at over 91 million acres of corn, they say, and then they will say, well, we couldn't factor in all the flooding and everything because it happened too late. They will say. And what they tend to do is they'll kick that can down the road and then they'll start making adjustments later in the year. And sometimes they'll make a revision to the year before saying, whoops, we had that all wrong back then. And everybody knew it was wrong.
Yep.
But they won't admit it until the fine print in a summary after the report or something a year later. And then they'll backtrack on stuff. That shouldn't be allowed. It should be out in the public. And
Yeah.
I hate it when that stuff gets hidden in between the lines like that.
Yeah. If we can't do any better job of collecting the information in a timely manner and putting it out to the public, then don't report the information.
Well, and the problem is it's a monopoly. I mean,
Yeah, that's right.
who is out there that can prove anything different? I
Maybe.
mean, they could say, the sun revolves around the moon.
Yeah.
And who can prove them wrong? I mean, they're the only ones with the data, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that maybe we should start a U.S. branch of CONAB or something. I don't know.
It's just craziness. And I heard so many comments from so many sources today, and basically they were all just saying this is utterly ridiculous that you have to put up with this. And then can you even believe any of the data anyway when it does come out?
Right.
Because it doesn't take into account what happened the last week or so. Anyway, that being said, all right, boy, I feel better. Let's take a look at the actual numbers, the planted acreage numbers. Let's bring them up and talk about it. So what caused all the turmoil in the market appeared to be that corn acreage number. Explain that one.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you were looking for 90 million, almost 90 million smooth based on the March intentions. And then the trade was looking for a 300,000 acre increase. So we were looking for 90.35. And that was the average trade estimate leading into today. USDA puts out a 91.47. So almost 91.5 million acres when they were at 90 intended in March. Now, I think maybe the reason that was, of course, a million acres is a million acres. That's a big number, and that's hard for the market to absorb, even when you've been down like we have of late. But one thing I had to keep reminding clients of today is this is as of surveys being conducted 3 weeks ago. And so we have to keep in mind that 3 weeks ago, in a lot of cases, these were still intentions that may have been foiled in the days and weeks to come following that survey. Here locally, that was absolutely the case. We may have thought, okay, yeah, we're going to take some late plant, we're going to replant here, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And then, 15, 20 inches of rain later, that's off the board. And so when do we see the reality of it? I don't know. I mean, we didn't fully see the reality of the 2019 planting season until January of 21. And so, while there's a storyline here that's probably bullish based on what we're seeing especially in the Northwest Corn Belt, but in the Western Corn Belt as a whole, for the most part, you're going to have a lot of zeroed acres. You're going to have a lot of damaged acres because of the moisture that we've seen. When you zero out 10 acres on a field, that makes a big difference, especially when you're talking about 250 APH ground. And so that those things all still have to come to fruition, and we have to see that in print at some point, or at least we would think we would. But I'm not sure I have much faith in that at this point. So when do we see that? Is it August? Not likely. Is it September in the quarterly stocks report? Maybe. Is it January crop report? Maybe. Who knows?
So what happened to all that talk? There were suggestions that USDA had hinted that they're probably going to have to go out and resurvey several states just because of all the flooding and everything. Did they mention anything about that?
No, it's well, I mean, I don't think so. If I could access the USDA site properly, maybe I would find the page that would actually tell me for sure, but I've not seen any chatter of it. But so far I'm flying blind, and no one has made mention of it. So typically when you have this situation where, I've mentioned in previous videos and I've put in my written reports through the Comstock report that, we had a 2-month planting season. And when that occurs, typically you see some resurveying done at some point. But boy, I'm not putting much faith in their survey, let alone their resurvey.
And even as we record this after the markets closed on Friday, you said you're having a deluge again out there today.
Oh yeah. It was when I came in to record, I couldn't see across the street. Now I at least can do that, but yeah, it's pouring rain. I-29 shut down at Omaha, Nebraska right now. It's completely underwater. You've got bridges out all over the place, roads shut down all over the place. It seems like the runoff water has created just as much damage to the infrastructure that the flood itself did. And so now we're dealing with the fallout of all that. I had to drive what would normally be an hour 2 days ago to Algona, Iowa from my house. And it took me almost 2 hours because I didn't realize I couldn't go even. I knew I had to take one detour. I didn't realize there were 3. And so it doubled my drive time just on an hour's drive. And then we got another 1.5 inches of rain last night. Many of the area towns had anywhere from 1/2 to 1 inch. At Iowa Great Lakes at Okoboji, we had 1.5 inches to David Cruz actually had 1 inch and 6,500. This is rain. We can't afford this right now. And luckily we were at the 1/2 inch mark here at the office, so it won't just completely obliterate everything. And then we easily had another 1/2 inch right as I was walking in here. So it's just unrelenting.
I know earlier I had interviewed Mike Steenhook. He is with Soy Transportation Coalition. And I believe that's going to be airing on Monday as we are editing that right now. But he was talking about the fact of that railroad bridge, the BNSF railroad bridge being taken out by, was it Sioux City or Sioux Falls? I forget
Sioux
which.
City.
Okay, Sioux City.
Yeah.
And that's a major link, from one side of the river to the other. Well, now that's gone.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get it from side to side now? He said you're going to have to take huge detours to get that grain moving on the rail. The interstates are shut down.
Yep.
You can't even use trucks right now. I mean, just think how much time and extra fuel and energy is going to have to be used.
Yeah.
That isn't going to be good for basis, is it? If that's the case,
I can't think so. And I've been questioning for the last week or so, what does that mean for ethanol? Because the cost of transport for the actual ethanol that's coming from the plants in this region going to other parts of the country, what does that mean for that transportation cost? And what does that mean for the marketability of the ethanol in the short term? I don't know.
That's a good point. I never thought about that. So you have plants in northern Nebraska, let's say, in South Dakota. If their markets are more toward Chicago and further east, they're going to have a hard time getting those rail cars back that way. I hadn't even thought about that side.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So
interviewing some railroad personnel.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm looking at the corn acres, 91.47
Yep.
blew the mind of traders.
Yep.
A year ago, it was 94.64. Soybean acres, 86.10. The trader was looking for 86.75. Was that a fair number, do you think?
I think that number will be revised the wrong way for anybody looking for higher soybean prices. I think you're going to see, if there is a revision that is worth a damn from the USDA, I think you're going to see a little bit of a shift from some of these corn acres to some bean acres, and you probably be back up towards that estimated number in the 86.75 to 87 million acre range. Don't know when that might happen.
Is that what happened? Looking at that same graphic here, the acreage report, is that what happened with the cotton acres?
Yeah. I think that's exactly the case. And, I have a hard time believing that influx of cotton acres given the prices, but cotton is a different animal. Cotton farmers are highly invested in cotton specific equipment. I mean, I know numerous producers that have several $1 million pickers in addition to maybe some ownership in the gin, or maybe they have some dedicated trucking outfit that works on cotton specifically. And so there's a lot of integration within the conglomerate of producers, especially in the Mid South, which is where most of my exposure was, and even so in Texas, where they're really invested and they're going to grow cotton. And then aside from that, how you would see that shift of acreage to cotton, I don't think that's going to be the case. And I think you would see the beans win out later in that regard.
Now, they did have an acreage number on wheat, and I'm looking at the table here. It says 47.24 million acres on the wheat. Now, this is all classes combined, correct?
All classes. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
In March rather, they were looking at 47.49. So it's a little bit under what the trade had anticipated.
Yep.
Compared to a year ago, we were down, about 2 million acres, almost 2.5.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't seem to shock the trade too much, though.
No, I didn't. But I would say flip back over to the stocks number, and
Okay,
and
well,
that's
let's
what.
do that. Let's bring up that stocks
Yeah.
graphic here. Let's take a look at that.
The acreage number wasn't too much of a surprise. Everything was kind of within the range of expectations, and not too big of a deal there. But the stocks number, if you particularly look at last year's stocks number at 570 versus this report at 702, you're a big shift in the stocks, and part of that is going to be due to winter wheat yield expectations, and the other part of it is we just haven't been moving the wheat that we have in years past. So many other countries are selling with closer proximity at lower prices. We all know about the Russia story and how they've given it away for many months of the past year, and that's impacted the rest of the world as far as other wheat exporters, and we're seeing the effects of that.
Let's look higher up on that table on the graphic here. Corn stocks,
Yep.
just short of 5 billion bushels, just a few bushels short of that. A year
Mhm.
ago, it was 4.1.
Yeah,
It seems like a lot.
it is. It is. And it seems, based on the fundamental factors that I can point to in most areas, it seems like that's probably the number that I am least likely to believe because of
Why?
basis levels throughout so much of the country. I mean, basis levels are just on fire. Producers are, or end users, I'm sorry, not producers. End users are still scrambling to try to find the grain, and it doesn't seem that they're able to do it unless they juice the basis. And so you're seeing the basis do a lot of the work, and even on a day-to-day increment, you're seeing basis compensate for board losses, but the board just shrugs it off and continues doing what it's doing.
I thought back in March when we came up to delivery time on the March contracts, that there was a lot of cases where people either had to liquidate or deliver or something, and there was a big decision time. And I thought a lot of grain actually got sold back then.
Yeah,
This
and
would maybe seem to indicate that maybe they didn't do that much.
yeah, that's what the USDA numbers would tell you. But when you looked at the trade action at the March and the May, and now today, first notice day for July, and sharply weaker all three of those days, and not a lot of traction in the days following. This seems to me to be a little hard to believe, and I hear it from clients all the time: is how do we have this kind of carry? How is this possible when we're seeing this and we're hearing that? And they're referring to basis at a certain place, or I talked to this person and they said they can't get any until such and such time frame. And they're having conversations with end users on a daily basis because they're trying to figure out what kind of prices they can get for their grain that's still in the bin. And that right there may be the answer. Maybe there's still so much in the bin. But I get asked all the time by my own customers and report subscribers that'll call in, well, are your clients holding on to a lot of grain? And my answer is, a lot of my clients are holding on to grain, but very few of them are holding on to much. And so I just don't know that it's out there.
Plus, you think of the fact that we have export sales that are running way ahead of a year ago on corn, right?
Corn, yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, how's that possible to be building up stocks when you're selling ahead of where you even projected it would be?
yeah. And a lot of people will point to the livestock numbers. Well, we had to kill all these chickens and we had to kill all these turkeys, and we're running lighter on numbers on cattle. And that's true, but we're killing 20,000 more hogs a day. They got to be eating something. We're running the cattle up to 1,600 pounds, and you lose a ton of efficiency once those things cross 1,300. And so they're having to eat a hell of a lot more feed to gain those last couple hundred pounds that we're putting on them now. And we are starting to see cattle weights back off a little bit over the last 2 weeks. Not a lot, but you've lost about 7 pounds over the last 2 weeks on the cattle carcasses. And so maybe the USDA is so much smarter and forward looking than we think.
If I remember right, the last cattle on feed report placements were way higher than expected.
Yeah, 104.3. And once they go on commercial feed, I mean, they're plowing through corn.
That's one way to put it. I would be fascinated, and I encourage our audience out there. I want to hear your comments down below. Make sure you join in the conversation here. What do you think about the report? How do you feel about the numbers? Are they on target? Do they match what you think or what you see out where your farm or ranch is? I'd be fascinated to see the comments that come in on this. Let's take a look at the soybean stocks. They came in at 970 million bushels compared to just under 800 million a year ago at this time.
Yeah.
Okay, soybean sales are down. That's true. Brazil had a better crop. Argentina had a better crop this year. Is that in your comfort zone for numbers when it comes to soybean stocks?
Yeah, soybeans and wheat, I'm okay with them. As far as stock numbers, I don't have too much qualm with that. I don't have a hard time believing those numbers. And I was definitely in the camp, and I know there was a lot of other people as well, that as we expanded our crush capacity domestically, that we were just going to be going through beans like crazy and going after the oil. Meal was going to become a byproduct. We weren't going to be able to grow enough soybeans. And then we start importing used cooking oil from around the world, and that made up for all of it. And we no longer have any use for U.S. soybeans by the looks of the market right now. So, yeah, I got no problem with the stocks number. I just hope that we can figure out a way to benefit the U.S. farmer and not the Brazilian and Chinese used cooking oil markets.
Looking at the daily charts now on corn and soybeans, I didn't know if technical indicators can go below zero. I mean, they're really dragging the bottom of the barrel here.
They are. It's terrible. And I do a morning video for clients, just 4 or 5 minutes in the morning, highlighting what I'm seeing on the charts and what maybe I'm looking for or hoping against or whatever the case may be. And as I look at the grains, and it doesn't matter if you're looking at soybeans, corn, Chicago wheat, KC wheat, oats, all of those charts have to be looking for a bottom close by. The one that did perform well, actually the two that have performed fairly well over the last few days is the wheat and the oats. So Chicago wheat, KC wheat, and oats all look pretty good, like they're trying to mount a recovery. We did finish lower than the wheat today, but not enough to make a difference on the chart. And so I think there's going to be some cause for some technical buying in those markets, and maybe we just need to flip to the next quarter to get it started.
Yeah, Kansas City wheat looks like it's kind of basing out. It had an outside day, but it closed right in the middle of the range from the previous day. So kind of a sideways type pattern there. So what does all this mean then as you translate it into what it means for livestock? Feed really got cheap today.
I did a lot of feed coverage today. Actually, yesterday and today, I was putting on a lot of feed coverage. We knew there was a chance that we could see a bullish or a bearish reaction to the reports today, but we also knew there was a chance we could see a bullish reaction to the reports today. So we started yesterday with the idea that if it softens up today, we'll go ahead and add some more coverage, and we were able to get a lot of that done today. So I've got some pretty large cattle feeders that locked in a lot of feed coverage at some really affordable prices, especially when they were penciling $5 this year for the whole year. This just kind of made them happy campers, and maybe we'll see some more of that, and that'll be the catalyst to move us here.
But why were cattle down so hard on Friday?
So that's funny that you mentioned that, because one of my mentors when I started in this industry used to always say, on days like today when you have the corn down big, he'd say, well, if the feeder cattle don't believe it, why should I? And that was all I could think about today. The feeder cattle faded from their highs, and then they're trading $1, and a half lower. And I thought, well, if the feeder cattle don't believe it, why should I? So I'm thinking maybe we'll see a rebound in the corn market just based on the action we saw in the feeders after they bounced up, made a high after the report. Corn's down 20 cents, feeders are making highs, and then all of a sudden the feeders go into negative territory and finish there.
So it makes you think that feeders are skeptical of certain agency data. Hogs
Yeah.
had a bit of a bounce
Yeah.
to wrap up the week. By the way, it was not only the end of the week, but the end of the month, the end of the quarter.
Yeah.
And like you said, it was first notice day on grains too for July. What about hogs? Are they looking at the bottom in the rearview mirror now?
God, I hope so. That's just been a torturous market. But yeah, I mean, they've showed some signs this week, particularly, and I've been taking a stab at buying some hogs. I did take a little profit on some August hogs today, and I think there was others in that camp too because we did finish off the high. But if we can see some decent cash trade to start the week, I'll jump right back at them. But I think that's a market that needs to find support very nearby. Otherwise, we're going to have a lot of upset hog feeders as well as farmers once we get going through the year here.
Stock market didn't do much. The U.S. dollar value, it didn't change too much either. And I guess I was curious what the markets would do after the debate that took place on Thursday. And it's like collectively, the markets just kind of yawned.
Yeah, as most viewers did, I think. I think it was just, I don't know. There's a lot of disbelief in some of the things that were witnessed yesterday, and I know that the country would like to see a bigger change than what we have the prospects for right now. But all in all, I think virtually all the implications of the debate were shrugged off. We did see a little bit of movement in the stock market early in the day, but ultimately finished quietly soft and not too much to hang your hat on there.
Okay, you've been in this business for a while. When you put the wraps on a quarter like we just did, there has always been a tendency for traders to, as they say, put on window dressing at the end of the period as they close the books, just to show their profits. Was that a contributing factor on Friday? Or, I mean, how do you take a profit on a market that continues to go straight down on the grain side?
Yeah. No, I don't. I think that's why maybe we saw some late session weakness in the cattle. I think they might have been closing out some of those positions, especially with the June live cattle going off the board. Now August becomes front month. That's still 2 months away, so there doesn't have to be a lot of reconciliation there for a while. But with regards to the grains, I'm almost wanting, because I've seen it happen both ways. Oftentimes, you do in the last couple of days of a quarter, you see some profit taking, some position covering, especially with reports there. But if they were convinced that those reports were going to give the catalyst for this kind of a move to end the week, the month, the quarter, okay, now we can start by posting a really nice start to the quarter or the month next month. And the other thing is they may have been content just to hold this position through the 4th of July, where we often do see trend changes in the grain market specifically.
The only thing that kind of gives me a little bit of solace here as we wrap up the week and the month is the old saying that you always bottom on bearish news.
Yes.
And from my experience over the years, more often than not, the 4th of July indicates a change in trend.
Yep.
I mean, are we set up for that, do you think?
I believe we are. And that's why I was kind of prodding the cattle feeders to get some feed coverage put on today, because I think we're getting close here. You did trade September down to 399.5. September is going to be it is now your front month speculative contract, because you can't speculate in the July anymore as of today. And so 399.5, obviously you're testing $4. That held. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's the number we were looking for. Otherwise, yeah, we could see some weakness leading into Wednesday's close. Then we're shut down for the 4th of July. Then we wrap up the week. So yeah, I think that's quite possible.
Do you know what the trading schedule is for next week? We have a holiday right in the middle of the week next week.
Yeah.
Is it a full day on Wednesday as far as you know?
It is a full day Wednesday. What I do not know is if we have a Thursday night session.
Oh. Okay.
I believe that we do, but I'm not 100% yet. I haven't checked. I'm actually going to be gone for part of next week, and so I won't be participating next Friday in this video. So.
Oh, Well, sorry to hear that, but I'm sure you've kind of been worn out here on the phone here for the last few days.
Right.
Anyway, thanks for all the comments about the market activity. Man, it's been a wild few sessions here. And again, I want to encourage everybody out there. Again, thank you for all the comments you have sent in related to the flooding recently. That helped us a lot in kind of gauging where things were taking place. And, our thoughts and prayers for everybody affected there. But we appreciate those comments. And the same thing goes for these USDA reports like this. Let us know what you're thinking. I mean, is it fair? Maybe you have a superior crop where you are, and maybe it's justified. I don't know, but let us know. We'd like to hear.
And I
We
might add also, how much old crop are we still holding?
There
Is
you
it
go.
10%? Is it 30? I'd like to know that too.
Yeah. So post it in the comments below, and we'll try and keep tabs on that and share it with people if we think it's something that a lot of folks don't know about. And we encourage that a lot. So, Eric, you will be around until the 4th. Is that correct? If somebody wants to contact you?
Yeah. Actually, I'll still be available until the 3rd. I have a family event going on that I have to go and be with my granddaughter who's having surgery next week. So I'm going to be traveling a little bit next week, but working remotely as well. So feel free to reach out. I'll be around in the office Monday, Tuesday, remotely after that. And, send me an email at ericr@comstock.com or give us a call at the office, 712-227-1110.
All right. Well, thanks again, and wish you all the best. Hope you have a terrific Independence Day holiday, and I'll talk to you sometime on the other side. So safe travels to you, and thanks for all the help. Eric Relph with us. He is with Comstock Investments, and that'll do it for this episode. Thanks again for joining us. For producer Brianne Hendrickson, I'm Marlon Bowling. We'll catch you next time right here on the Comstock channel. Thanks for joining us on our Comstock YouTube channel. Don't forget, you can also find us on Facebook and TikTok as well. Futures trading involves risk. The risk of loss in trading futures and/or options is substantial, and each investor and/or trader must consider whether this is a suitable investment. Past performance is not indicative of future results.